The movie begins in a therapist's office where a husband and wife discuss their marital problems. John clearly shows that he doesn't believe he and his wife need counseling, but Jane disagrees. After a brief banter about their marital status, the couple tells their therapist about their meeting day. They tell him that they first met in Colombia, which was 5 or 6 years ago. John was having a drink at the bar of his hotel when he heard a commotion outside. When he asked the bartender about the situation, he is told that the Barracuda was shot, and police were looking for tourists traveling alone. Suddenly, the police barge in and begin asking John questions when he suddenly sees Jane walk into the hotel. Realizing they were both in danger, the two pretended like they had arrived together and headed to John's room together. That night, the two head out for drinks and end up sleeping together. The following morning, Jane wakes up and sees John walk into the room with coffee and breakfast. The two spend a wonderful time in Colombia and return home to go on a date. John takes Jane to a festival and surprises her with his shooting skills, shocked when she can do the same. 6 weeks later, John is in his kickboxing gym and is telling his friends that he wants to marry Jane because he is in love. Despite his friends advising against it, John is adamant about his decision. In a different part of the city, Jane is rock climbing with her friend, who is advising her about her relationship with John, which she believes is moving too fast. Jane assures her friend that she never does anything without thinking and stays adamant about her plan to marry John. Jane believes John is a big-time contractor, while John thinks his girlfriend works on Wall Street, and neither of them is aware of the truth. 5 or 6 years later, Jane and John are married and are living in a large house in the suburbs. After having a brief conversation about their therapy session, the two rush out of their house to go to work. After a long day of work, Jane is home early and begins making dinner while watching John pull up into the driveway. Once he comes inside, the couple have a brief fight about the new curtains Jane had purchased. In the following days, the couple begins to go to therapy on their own so they can vent about their marriage. Both Jane and John have begun to suspect that they are keeping secrets from each other and trying to find out what it is. One night, Jane dresses up late at night and heads out after telling her husband she has a work crisis. Jane heads over to a fancy hotel where she is greeted by a man who takes her to a private room. Inside the room, Jane finds a man waiting and begins to take off her coat, revealing that she is wearing a dominatrix's outfit. After getting his defense down, Jane quickly snaps the man's neck and makes her escape while the dead man's henchmen try to catch her. Meanwhile, John is upset with his wife and heads out to a private poker game downtown, stumbling into one of the rooms. Acting drunk, he attempts to get the men to let him play and finally succeeds. While they're playing a game, a man by the name of Lucky walks in and gets upset to see John sitting on his spot. Before they knew what was going on, John pulled out his gun and shot them all, after telling him that they were his mission. After the couple completes their mission, they both go home and pretend like nothing happened, heading over to their neighbor's house for dinner. Once they're done with the gathering, the couple heads home and has their usual quiet night. The following morning, John heads over to their house's tool shade, where he has an underground lair where he keeps his weapons. After hearing John's car leave, Jane wakes up and grabs her weapons from a specially built safe that rises from her oven. John goes over to his office and activates his office, which transforms into a secret lair where he can receive his mission orders. John is given orders to murder a man by the name of Benjamin, unaware that his wife Jane has been given orders to protect his target from his rival company. After receiving her orders, Jane headed out to the desert where Benjamin's convoy was approaching. While she waits, she is surprised to see a man approaching, unaware that it is her husband. With quick thinking, she shoots John in the chest, but he is saved by the body armor he was wearing. Angry, he attempts to blow up the shade where Jane is hiding, but she manages to escape, but she doesn't complete her mission instead. The following day, John shares the news with his work friend Eddie, seeming disturbed by the loss. Meanwhile, Jane is angry at the man who caused her to fail her mission and orders her department to find out who the man on the scene is. After his conversation with Eddie, John takes Jane's destroyed laptop to a specialist and manages to track down the address, shocked when it leads him straight to Jane's office. While analyzing the videos of the scene, Jane also manages to figure out that the man who had ruined the mission for her was her husband. Realizing what they were dealing with, the couple rushed home, both vigilant harassment of each other. While they're having dinner, the couple tries to gauge what each other is doing, both pretending like they didn't know the other was a spy. After a mishap with Jane, they realize their cover was blown and immediately begin to attack each other after John accidentally shoots at his wife. Escaping each other, Jane and John go over to their friend's house and inform them about what had happened. Angry at the betrayal, Jane and John decide to kill their spouse, feeling like they have been made fun of. The following day, Jane goes to her house with her team to find out if John has been spying on her. When John goes to his house, he realizes Jane has cleaned out his entire shade, taking all his weapons. Angry at what she has done, John goes over to her office, but her staff immediately detects him and evacuates the area. John continues to chase after Jane and finds the new penthouse her company was renting. Anticipating he would find her, Jane had already laid down her trap and was waiting for him. After a brief confrontation and warning him to leave town, John refuses, forcing her to blow up the elevator he had been in and immediately regretting the order she had given. Jane was unaware that John had staged the whole thing and was sad when he knew his wife could kill him. Later that evening, Jane goes to the restaurant where John had first proposed to her and meets John, who she already knew was alive. The two begin to talk about their marriage and why it had failed, assuring each other that it was all business. After a brief dance, Jane leaves a small bomb in John's jacket and creates a distraction to make her escape. Realizing her plan, he quickly gets rid of the bomb and calls her, telling her that he is going to go home and burn everything he has ever bought her. Taking it as a challenge, Jane agrees to race him there, hoping to have their showdown. As they drive to their old house, John calls Jane once more and begins to talk about the first time he had seen her, expressing his affection, but she simply tells him that it was all business for her. The couple arrives at the house at the same time and Jane smashes into his car on her way through the driveway. Angry, John jumps out of his car and sneaks around the house to catch Jane by surprise. Meanwhile, Jane is holding a machine gun, searching around the house for John. Finally making it inside the house, John finds his hidden gun and begins searching for his wife. Suddenly, the gunfire begins as husband and wife attempt to kill each other. The trained spies use their years of skills to dodge the bullets and finally begin hand-to-hand combat. After battling with each other, the couple comes to a standstill where they have their guns trained on each other, waiting for the other to shoot. Realizing that he still loves her, John puts down his gun and tells her to take the shot. Refusing to kill each other, the two begin to kiss and spend the night together, rekindling their love. The following morning, the couple make each other breakfast and begin talking about the missions they had undertaken, unaware they had a bounty on their heads. Suddenly, chaos ensues as assassins begin knocking down their door, ready to murder them. Quickly realizing what had happened, the couple jumped into action and escaped their assassins, destroying their house in the process. Quickly stealing a car from their neighbor, John and Jane jump into action as more and more assassins come to kill them. During the chase, the couple shared the lies they had kept from each other, learning things that shocked them. After a long chase and devastating battle with their assassins, the skilled spies manage to escape in one piece. Realizing that they need to gather more information, John and Jane go to speak to Eddie, finding him at their regular dinner. Shocked to see John alive, Eddie tells his friend that the whole company was after him for teaming up with the enemy and advises them to separate if they ever want to stay alive, telling them that they need to find something the company wants more than them dead. Realizing that the company John works for still wants their hands on Benjamin, John, and Jane, decide to break the young man from where the FBI is holding him. After formulating a plan for Jane to watch his back while goes in to get the young man, the two work together to kidnap Benjamin. During the escape, Jane gets angry at John for deviating from the plan, while he accuses her of being too uptight. Finally arriving at a secret motel, they begin to threaten Benjamin and attempt to get him to talk about why both their bosses wanted him dead. Telling them to look through his pocket, he informs them that both companies found out that they were married and sent them on the same mission. Benjamin tells them that he was never the target, but that it was them all along. Realizing Benjamin was bait all along, they realize he had a tracker in his belt and that their enemies were close by. Seeing the vehicles and helicopters arriving, John and Jane escape the motel room and hide in sewers while the assassins search for them. While they hide, John convinces his wife to stay and fight, telling her that he doesn't want to run for the rest of his life. Agreeing with him, the two head into a nearby store where they would be able to have an upper hand against their enemies. Using their years of training, the couple begins to take out their enemies one by one, until John accidentally drops a stacked pile of cans, and the shooting begins. With his wife covering his back, John begins to take out the killers one by one, until he sees Jane get hurt after multiple shots of her bulletproof vest. Rushing toward her, John drags her into one of the rooms, and the two are scared they won't be able to make it out alive. Getting themselves ready, the couple jump out of the shed, guns blazing, and begin to take out as many of the assassins sent after them, covering each other's back throughout the whole ordeal. Before they knew it, they had managed to kill everyone and remained the only people alive in the whole store. The scene changes and we see John and Jane back in therapy, talking about how they had managed to work on their relationship and how they were better than ever. In the end, we see the couple telling their therapist that they had managed to redo their house and that they were the happiest they had ever been.